there that are just so perfect and rhyme and rhyme.
Yeah.
And that's it's just he just amazes me. But all of these people amaze me. I just adore all of them. So let's see there that are
Yeah.
just so perfect. But there we are. And we are being live streamed. So let us go back to our book. There we go. Okay, so welcome everyone. We're here for Never Forget to Laugh, Personal Recollections of Bill Thetford, co-scribe of A Course in Miracles. I'm going to change my glasses because I got new glasses and I got glasses specifically for the computer. Oh, wow, so clear. I'm sure you guys have all noticed, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, I don't know, that a lot of times I'm like squinting at the screen because I can't read or see. And so my eye doctor said, let's get you glasses just for the computer so you can see what's right there. And man, has it shifted things for me. Um, okay, so I'm just going to go back. Um, that uh, he he uh, Ken and this guy Art had this an unhappy relationship for some reason, and because Art didn't like Helen, and he wanted Ken to get rid of Helen, I guess. So he stopped talking to Bill. So Bill just decided to go every morning to his office. Bill Thetford, go every morning to his office and just sit there and read the newspaper. And so he did that every day and every day and every day. And this guy never talked to him, never talked to him. And then one day Bill didn't come in because he had something to do. And at lunchtime, this guy Art said, "Hey, where were you? You didn't come in this morning." And so Bill said, "Well, I had an appointment." And that's when they started talking again. And so this is where I want to continue with this story because I find this so fascinating. This is how complete the plan is. And this is how Jesus has really um, made everything in the plan just work so perfectly, or God or the Holy Spirit, whomever you want to say. So not long after that, all the upper staff members were invited to a conference where Bill and Art represented their department at the university. Checking into the hotel, although not together, each found the hotel had overbooked and there was a shortage of rooms. The hotel staff asked those who knew each other to double up. Art approached Bill and asked if he would like to share a room, stating, "There is no one here I would rather be with." Bill said he would be delighted, and after unpacking their things, they went down to the bar before dinner. As they sat there talking and waiting for dinner to be announced, Art took 3 almonds from a little bowl on their table, passed them to Bill, and said, "Edgar Casey says they're very good for you." Bill said he nearly dropped his front teeth. "Edgar Casey, Art?" Art replied, "Yes, he's this very famous psychic. During the war, I was stationed in Virginia Beach, and I used to go to his house for lunch on Sundays. He was really a very great guy." Bill said at that moment, he knew it was over. The situation with Art was the first time he had deliberately practiced A Course in Miracles, and of course, their changed relationship improved the department's functioning. This quiet way was typical of Bill. He didn't go to Art saying, "Look, I know how you're feeling about the situation, and I don't blame you, but you're making me really uncomfortable, and here are the reasons for my decision, etc." Instead, instead, he sat there in the chair quietly. So that had to just have blown him away. And welcome, Myrna. Good to see you. That had to have just blown him away for this guy who he just was just straight-laced work companion, knowing who Edgar Casey was, not only knowing who Edgar Casey was, but that he would I don't know, did he say that in Absence of Felicity, I think he says that uh, Art during the war. Oh yeah, he used to go to his house for lunch on Sundays, and that he entertained the soldiers. That was one thing that Edgar Casey did was the soldiers that were there at the base. He would have them over and feed them lunch, which was really a nice thing for soldiers during those days to get something other than army food. So anyway, I will continue reading. Does anybody have any comments here before I go on? And oh, where's my participant list? I need to see my participants. There we go. Okay. So the mention of Edgar Casey was so meaningful to Bill because shortly before Bill's urgent speech to Helen that precipitated the onset of A Course in Miracles, he had read a book by Hugh Lynn Casey, Edgar's son. Although the claims regarding Casey's abilities seemed preposterous by his own scientific standards, Bill sensed inwardly that the stories about him were legitimate. On that basis, he planned a trip for Helen and himself to Virginia Beach to meet Hugh Lynn. Helen resisted going as she didn't want to be considered a quote psychic or be associated with them. Although she was privately impressed with her growing psychic abilities, I'm sure she had to be. She was often ambivalent about rejecting or embracing aspects of herself. Their visit took place in the fall of 1965, after her several months of heightened visual imagery, just before the course began in October. Bill always thought that trip gave her permission to open up to her immense intuitive abilities and also provided some rudimentary preparation for him. He began to think, quote, outside the box, unquote, and looked with growing, though quiet appreciation of his own intuitive abilities. The healing with Art was only one of a number of relationships that seemed smoother as Bill attempted to follow his own guidance and the course instructions. Those around him began to notice that the department seemed less harried, and his secretary, having no idea of the real meaning behind what she was saying, would periodically proclaim, "Oh, Dr. Thetford has just performed another miracle." I love that. Or a close colleague, the chairman of the psychology department at the University of Chicago, would say, "There's Bill walking on water again." Bill himself felt that by the time he left the medical center, he had reached his goal, healing all his relationships there. All, of course, except the primary one with Helen. All right. What do you guys think? What do you think, Sharon? Or Myrna or Glorian?
I love the backstory. I love learning about, when I look at the Course in Miracles, I feel like it's for everyone, but I also believe that Jesus was very focused on Helen and Bill in a lot of the places. And if you look at how Bill even woke up, every one of us wakes up differently, but he woke up in such a dramatic way. So I feel like that this is why I loved the course so much. When I got the course, I had to know if this was just, I didn't know if it was true or not. So I just went in, and that's why I got Journey Without Distance, which is also a book that I always recommend because the story is just, it's intriguing how this whole thing came about and how all these players came about. But, when I look at, Bill, if you look at somebody who's totally healed, he was totally, totally healed. He said, "Today's my Independence Day," and he just dropped. So yeah, I love this. But I don't know enough about. I mean, Art's just somebody that he knew from his, medical place.
Yeah.
You want
Well,
me to go? Do you want to
sure.
continue?
Yeah.
Anybody want to just talk? Anybody want to share?
All right. You can continue reading chapter 6.
Although neither Bill nor Helen had been consciously interested in religious or spiritual matters before ACIM dictation began. Bill quickly recognized the universal nature of the material and began a serious inquiry into the world's major religious traditions and teachings. In his search for corroboration, he discovered the non-dual teachings of Advaita Vedanta from India and immediately saw its parallels to the Course. Thus, he dubbed ACIM the Christian Vedanta because of its use of Christian language to present these truths. He became more impressed with the Course as his study deepened, finding it integrated and synthesized the best of the teachings he investigated, and it was practical. He read extensively in his newly discovered field of interest and became extremely well-versed in this formerly uninteresting subject. Many of Bill's friends and colleagues said that he had an astounding capacity to absorb vast quantities of written material quickly, a valuable trait given that he had 5,000 years of mystical traditions to explore. Years later, he noted with some disappointment that the paths on which he had lavished so much time and attention did not explain or even address the spiritual dimension of our life experience. How unexpectedly our lives can change and even reverse course. As Bill was deepening his research into metaphysics, he became intrigued with a chapter about mysticism and schizophrenia in the book Higher States of Consciousness by John White. Wow. Yeah, I had a cousin that just passed that was schizophrenic, and he was an amazing artist named Michael. He just died like in the fall of last year. What I was going to say is he didn't like being around people, but he was like an artist that was like a master at what he did. He was amazing. And I do want to say that I'm interested in finding, because mysticism and schizophrenia go hand in hand, I would think. I mean, that's what he's saying, but we don't know. It was written by Kenneth Wapnick, he wrote that book. No, he didn't write it. Higher States of Consciousness was by John White. It was written, well, it doesn't make sense, Lynn. Why does it say Higher States of Consciousness by John White? It was written by
Because apparently it's a chapter in the book. John White had a book about higher states of consciousness, and Ken wrote a chapter for the book about mysticism and schizophrenia.
Wow. Isn't that interesting? See, it all like it all comes together in such a mosaic. It's just beautiful.
That's what I'm saying. It's a beautiful plan.
It's an absolute perfect plan too.
Like a Quentin Tarantino movie. Everything comes together in the end.
Right. That's exactly the way I see it now too. It's so weird. Like when I look at my life now, I just can't even fathom that I would end up like where I'm at now with just so much gratitude and forgiveness and everything. Anyway, Father Benedict, a Capuchin friar, Benedict, one of the 3 or 4 people entrusted with their guilty secret, as Bill jokingly called it, subsequently became friendly with Ken and later introduced him to Bill and Helen. Oh. Shortly after they met that's when I graduated high school, it's 1972. Ken left New York for Israel to live in a monastery, presumably to be his permanent home. And that's what it says in that book, Journey Without Distance. Many in that book, it was describing Ken as someone who he didn't have any furniture. He had a single bed. He was a big reader. And he was on his way to be a Christian mystic. That's basically was what I read anyway. Shortly after they met in 1970, Ken left New York for Israel to live in a monastery, presumably to be his permanent home, having converted from Judaism to Catholicism. Did he convert, Lynn?
Yes, he did. Yeah, he became a Catholic and was going to be a monk. Yeah.
I find that so interesting because you could actually get that in Judaism too, I guess. But it's weird. Why I find it interesting is when I got to Altoona, I was felt guided to get all these books out at the library on saints. And I think it's really because when you're being led to the course, it does have Christian principle, I mean words, but none of them are the same as what
Well, it's
Christianity.
Jesus. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
it's the same principles. So yeah.
It's all
And there are
Jesus, right?
a lot of Christians are I mean there are a lot of Christians who are right on. I mean, they're not wacky doodles. And they do understand, Jesus and his purpose, and they do recognize that love is the real teaching of Jesus. There are a lot of Christians who are like that. But the ones
Yeah.
that are
Hmm.
not are the ones that we see and hear about so much. And that's why, when we hear the word Christian, it seems like, oh man, here's some nutcase. But in reality, it just a lot of them actually follow, what Jesus taught. So, and apparently Ken absolutely knew Jesus.
Look how he
I
wanted to be a monk. A monk doesn't do anything but meditate. That's it.
Oh no, monks do lots of other things.
Tell me I don't know enough.
Oh gosh, monks run farms and have charities and do they teach. There's all kinds of stuff that they do. Yeah, I mean there's
But they're not in the world with televisions and news and all that, right? They
Oh,
just
sure. Yeah, they got all that kind of stuff. It depends on what kind. There's all different kinds of monks, and there are some that, are cloistered and they don't have contact with the outside world, and their life is prayer and meditation. But that's very, very few. People would not become monks if all they were going to do is sit and meditate, because that would preclude a lot of young people would never do that. But no, there's monasteries. In fact, the monastery that we were at, uh
that one in
they had a
Colorado?
yeah, I'm just sending, uh I'll call you back. Let my daughter know I'll call her back. Yeah, they had vineyards, and they made wine.
Okay,
And
so yeah, see, I don't know enough of this stuff, so
yeah, so yeah,
I
so
inquire because I really don't know.
But if he was going to be a monk in Israel, was that where he was going to go be a monk?
Yes,
Yeah. So yeah,
right
Captain,
here it says it at the bottom in
and
the
and
note.
and you know what? I think that's kind of the same thing that Jimmy Twyman is a Franciscan monk.
Right, and if he's a Franciscan monk, then that's why he opened up, um, Namaste Village. Oh, Namaste Village. If I was single and I didn't have kids, I would go there.
Oh yeah.
I love him. I think he's just, you know, what I like is that he's not, when someone thinks they're better or higher because they think they're awakened, that comes across, and he's not that way.
No, he's just a sweet kid, and uh he's a lot of fun. He likes to play. Um,
Is he
oh,
going to be there too? And when you go,
no, he's going to Assisi. I think he was leaving yesterday or today to go to Assisi. So
what
he's
does
going
he do
to Italy.
there?
I don't know, probably, I don't know. Who knows? Same thing he does here, probably. But yeah, he's going to spend a couple months over there. So that's where the Franciscans um, are from, St. Francis of Assisi.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's good.
Really, that prayer is my favorite prayer.
Yeah,
Make me
yeah,
an instrument.
yeah. That's a perfect prayer. Absolutely, absolutely. I say it almost every day. Say that prayer at some point or another. Um, so yeah.
Okay,
So
where do I continue? Where would
Okay, once there,
Once
okay.
there, however, he couldn't get that meeting out of his mind. He dreamt of it, aware of a very strong connection with both of them, especially Helen. His guidance prevailed, and in the spring of 1973, as if on cue, he returned to New York, the last place he thought he wanted to be, to meet with them again and to find out more about the manuscript his new friends had mentioned to him earlier. One look in that intriguing book knocked him off his feet, to use his words. His fate was sealed. He notified his Israeli friends of his change of plans and reestablished himself in New York to be close to ACIM Central. Thus, as the dictation was concluding, Kenneth Wapnick officially entered the picture, commencing 3 more years of editing, rereading, checking for errors, and improving section and chapter titles. As if there were not enough turmoil and high drama around Bill and Helen's busy professional lives, punctuated with general angst and their unrelenting distress with each other. Ken's arrival stirred the pot even more. Despite serious difficulties, they were extremely codependent and genuinely and deeply cared for one another. Introducing a third party in the mix was more than a little unsettling for Bill. Ken's services were badly needed and truly appreciated, but they came at a price from his perspective. Helen and Ken's apparent mutual adoration, which developed right away, was the perfect setup to trigger within Bill a deep sense of rejection and betrayal. Look at that.
Wow.
It's interesting because this is happening to us all the time. Like for instance, I could go and it's always us. It's always us. There's no way it's always our own consciousness seeing itself. So, it's interesting how when people, because I too get triggered, not today. Well, I still get triggered by, what's, I don't want to talk about it, but yeah, there's triggers here and there. But do you see this subtle thing that trigger and not cause as the feeling of rejection was already in place? All the seeming other is doing is waking up that part of you that you've ignored. That's all they're doing. Your own self-hatred, and you're projecting it on that person. It's really, I had to go back, like I never left the course because I was with Dove every Thursday, but I was doing other things. But now where I'm at now, the course is the only book you really need. I mean, I like reading and I love wisdom and I like exploring because I very much still am in a body and I still believe I'm Sharon most of the time. But at the same time, I'm not triggered like I used to. I'm really peaceful.
Yeah. Yeah. That's me for sure as well.
Yeah, like I love my life. I love people. The amount of hatred I had for my ex-husband is gone. It's just gone. Sure, I still have ego, so the ego could still talk about it, but it's not there. And I think that Holy Spirit is really just healing us, and we don't even know it because we want, as humans, we want to have like some kind of a seeming change, but we all feel the change. All of us do now. It's just, and when Ken would say it takes time, he was right. This stuff takes time, right?
yeah. You know,
So anyway, the new situation brought those painful feelings into conscious awareness. Exactly what the course in life under its guidance is designed to do in order to free of them. The harshness and sarcasm evident in some of the following stories and quotes is not an indictment of Ken, Helen, or Bill himself. Helen and Ken were and are brilliant, dedicated, and of incalculable value in the ACIM Sangha, executing their special functions on schedule as promised. Bill's upset was clearly his own responsibility, which he ultimately recognized, but at this point he responded like most of humanity not realizing that the difficult characters in his drama were merely reflecting back to him the unloving projections of his own ego and the fears he had thus far refused to own. Bill remembers in his autobiography. Well, this is the story of Bill Thetford, as far as, well, never forget to laugh. That's what he would say too. Like, it's kind of interesting because it's so clear, like everyone's reflecting back to us always, always.
Right. And as we're reading this and seeing it, I'm seeing this in myself too, and you're seeing this in yourself too.
Absolutely. Well, if
So
I think
even
I'm the
sharing this,
character, and if I think somebody's out there, it's my own, yeah. Now,
but
there are discernment, I feel like you can discern and say who you would prefer maybe in your life, because
not
that's,
really. No, I mean, there's no, what is the point of that? What is the point of having a preference of one thing or another in this
well,
world?
I do with
It's to
food.
keep you
I do with,
special and keep specialness and keep the ego going. That this is what Jesus is trying to teach us. There's no purpose of having a preference. Preferences are specialness, and specialness
I
is,
know, but I still have them.
well, I know you do, and I do too. But what I'm saying is, I don't, I recognize that these preferences that seem so innocuous, like, oh, it's okay if I like Harris better than I like Trump. It's okay, well, no, it's not.
Well, if you see
Unless you
them
don't want
as
to wake
people,
up,
you're back in the ego.
right?
If
But
you,
unless you don't want to wake up, and you can just tell your mind, yep, it's okay to be this way. Just tell your mind, hey, there is no purpose to this, not even to entertain it. There's no purpose. It's all the same. It's a dream, dream, dream everywhere you look.
right,
It's
it's all meaningless.
ephemeral. It is ephemeral. It is a
But
so
I mean, like for instance, like I have preferences with food. I do have preferences in the political scene, but it's not like it was at all.
yeah, yeah. I'm not saying, yeah, I'm just for me, this comes from me. And Glorian has her hand up. Please go ahead, Glorian.
Yeah, no, this is very interesting. And I was surprised as well when we read that Bill felt excluded. And that's really what it was he felt excluded. And I think if you recognize that, of course, it's coming from his own projection of lack or whatever it might be. And there's all different types of manifestation of guilt. But the recognition that feeling excluded means you want to be included, the desire to be included is really actually the miracle impulse of wanting to be one. So if we can recognize that beyond
Oh, I love that.
all of this crazy and the different manifestations the forms of guilt take, beyond all that is just, that's the place we want to get to is I am, and just be. But ultimately, if we're seeing lack or desire, the recognition that that's always the desire to be one with God. And that's all that's going on here. And we repeat it again and again. And
Yeah.
it's an opportunity. It's our projection of lack, and it's our opportunity to recognize that we're not lacking ever.
That's right. Yes. Yes. And just the idea of whatever I have is what I want. I think honestly, then this is just at the top of my head here, but I really think that when I recognize that eh, where I am is the only place I can be, what I have is the only thing I can have. What's in front of me is the only thing that can be in front of me because this is all a script and a dream. And I listened to Keith from Sunday and heard very clearly he said these very, very same things. That these there's no reason to want anything else.
Yeah,
And
but
when
then
we
what I'll tell you where he helps me? Keith helps me when he says, but I mess up all the time, just like you.
Right. Yeah, and I understand that, Sharon. I understand that, and I agree with that as well. Um, uh, uh, but what I'm saying is, not, you know, I'm not looking for an excuse to let myself off the hook for messing up. I'm actually looking at, why is it that I'm messing up, and what is it? Why do I want something else? Why am I not
Temptation. It's
happy with?
just you're being
Well,
tempted.
that's listening to a voice that is
Isn't
not here
us.
to help
Yeah.
me. Yeah, so Gloria had her hand up. Gloria, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say quickly, yeah, I agree with everything that you said, and that recognition that it's our own unresolved guilt, which is listening to that fearful voice of the ego in whatever way it's coming in, that's telling us we're separate. And it's our guilt that we're seeing out there projected on the world. And the recognition of having really comes through meditation and through that acceptance of what we truly are in the holy instant, that experience of oneness, which is a miracle. And that's where we just come and it's like peeling the layers off of the onion, where we recognize, I am. And, it's a process, and that's why we have the atonement process. However, I do like what you said before, Lynn, also about being very absolute in recognizing that a preference of whatever form it is a separating idea. So that was good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have preferences. I'm saying we should look at our preferences and ask the question why. Did you ever see this movie called Defending Your Life? Yeah, go ahead, Gloria.
Yeah, it's the attachment to the outcome of the preference that makes it a problem. Like Krishnamurti says, the reason I'm peaceful is because I don't mind what happens. So that's the point. If we're, we have a preference, that's fine. But if we're attached to it or invested in it as our salvation, that's where it becomes, an opportunity to look at it and choose again.
That's it. And that's all any of this is. All any of this is an opportunity to look at it again, an opportunity to look at it again with the Holy Spirit. Giving myself chills here. Look at it again with the Holy Spirit because that's who will inform you, of what it is, tell you what it is. And we had a discussion yesterday in another group. I mentioned something about this being an illusion, and one of the ladies was said, I don't want to. Her husband has just passed away, by the way. She said, I don't want to. Um, offend you or anything, but, I really don't like to hear the word illusion. You can't, don't say the word illusion because, he was real, this was real. And I recognized that, uh, yeah, the idea of illusion, people don't even really understand what it is. Illusion is really something is there, but is appearing to be something else. So what we are is here, the Holy Spirit, the Holy Sons of God, but we appear to be bodies and furniture and trees, and we what we are is the one thing, but how we appear to the ego, to the mind, to the I, is as these things. But these things are ephemeral. I love that word ephemeral. Jesus says that. And I like that better than even the word illusion because they're wisps of smoke. They come and go. And when they go, we stay. What's there, the truth will always be there. Glorian, please go ahead.
Yes, yes. And when you were speaking, it was coming to me also that, illusion is fear. So if we go back to the simple, idea of false evidence against reality and that recognition that this is all, my thoughts are images I have made, and that images are not real, and images disintegrate and change. And they're part of the temporary, like you were saying. One beyond that, our reality is permanent, in that changeless dwelling place. So, yeah. And I think, for somebody, new or somebody coming in, to them, it's difficult to recognize the illusion or what Joel would call the hypnotism. But ultimately, that's something that one has to take into contemplation for themselves with what both of us just said and recognizing, it all comes together as we practice it. I'm responsible for what I see. And, it works that way. So, yeah, if somebody's belief right now is in the guilt that they're projected, all beliefs that lead to progress should be honored. So our best way is just what's the loving thing to do, and always follow that guidance that we receive from the Holy Spirit, from the higher self. And like you were saying, we start to read everything, not with the ego analyzing, thinking mind, but to read with Christ's vision, our true self. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gloria. And yeah,
I have to apologize. I had a friend, a girl I grew up with. She lives next door to me growing up till I was 18. Anyway, her daughter was on drugs and she got completely run over by a car. So I'm helping her out. Yeah, the car. What happened was she fell asleep in somebody's driveway.
oh my God.
Hi, and the guy went right over her. Yeah, so I was trying to give my friend. What's hard about this stuff. Her daughter wants more medication because she's in pain, obviously. So, Lauren, you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Well,
Did
yes.
she transition, or is she
No, she's alive and she's okay. No, he ran her over and it's not that it's bad, but it's not, she's not going
Well,
to die from it. But here's the thing, she already has addiction and she wants more Dilaudid. I don't, so
why
my friend
not?
asked
I mean,
me,
if she's in pain, give her medicine. What the heck?
well, that's how I feel.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I think too.
That
To
would be
me,
cruel.
but again, she's an addict. That's how it is in this world. They say if they're like when Jonathan needs something, sometimes I will go in his defense because he's not using anymore. He's not doing, but her daughter, the reason she's in this predicament. So I agree with you, Lynn. I mean, to me, like, okay, the way I feel
That
about
would
this
be
world,
medically unethical not to give a patient pain medicine. I'm hoping the doctor's giving her pain medicine.
yeah, but
That would
it's
be
been it's
unethical.
been a week. It'll be 2 weeks, but
I got
still,
run
that's
over
a,
by a car. Let me tell you what. And
I
I
want to
didn't
call her
run over like
back. So
that.
girls, you talk because I feel like she needs help. I don't want her to suffer.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
All
But
right, I'm excited about, I'll only talk a minute. I'll be right back. Go ahead,
okay.
Lynn, you
All right.
continue reading.
Okay. All right. I'm going to continue reading. Oh my goodness. What a what a life, what a life, what a life. That it would be just yes, Glorian, please go ahead.
Well, it's, interesting. That was just an example of what we were talking about. So on the level of the world, of the level of the dream, what's the loving thing to do? But of course, we maintain the truth about our brother in their reality. And that's to me, that's how I practice healing as far as, Joel puts it
Yeah,
out there. We do the loving thing on the level of the world discernment, yet we drop the name, drop the claim, and move into that space of our center of the reality of the one singular reality. Thanks.
thank you for that. Yeah, Glorian. Yeah, and just the whole idea that the fear for the future of our children when we look at holes they might fall into or what kind of problems they might have in the future if the fear for your child's future brings you to the point where you are unkind to them now. I mean, it's just assuming that you know what's best. And, for that girl, what's best for her is to not be in a lot of pain, I
You
believe.
know what? I so agree with you, girls. I really do.
Yeah.
But
And, and
right and wrong in this world is like, and look, my history was with my child that was addicted, and it's hard out there because the world wants them to, and this kid can't take emotional pain. That's why she was using. So,
right. So this might be the key to her healing
well,
is,
we'll see.
to,
I don't know. I don't know. I had been helping her with the steps, the girl, because she wanted
uh,
them, and I did them for years too. So I was helping, but it appears that she has other issues, mental health issues that I don't understand. And
Uh,
Myrna's raising her hand.
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know if you could see me. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Myrna. Hi,
Hi, how are
honey.
you doing? I'm thinking about this girl. Maybe she's an addict. So who knows the kind of medication she was taking to get, that she got into that
Oh,
predicament.
I
And
know. She had to do
obviously,
something really,
I mean,
probably
so isn't
fentanyl.
that, yeah,
That's
but I
fentanyl.
mean, what I'm saying is maybe they don't want to give her more of that. I mean, this is what got her there. Maybe there are different kinds of medications. She
Yeah,
shouldn't be
maybe.
in pain, but maybe she's demanding the medication or the drugs that she was addicted to, and which is that healthy? Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, they have to really like look at the fact that she was literally run over. The guy literally ran her over.
So,
Yeah.
so she has broken bones, more than
Well, it's her
likely.
pelvic area. Now, the thing is, it could have been more serious. It wasn't as serious as we thought it would be, but and it's a hard story because my
And you don't
friends,
know internal injuries. I mean, honestly, we're not doctors.
I
Uh,
don't know enough to say anything except that,
I,
it's hard to say because in this world, look, I mean, I had a child in addiction and I go with him when I feel like they won't give him something like he was hyperventilating for a long time because he has very high blood pressure. So they had to give him a Klonopin and I went with him because I knew he wasn't going to get high with that and he didn't. But
but,
again, it's a hard one. And
but
right and wrong is so hard in this world especially when you realize it's all a dream.
that's right. And it's you don't know anything. You don't know anything about, anything. So
Right.
I
You have
think
to
Jesus was real
ask. I
clear
just
to us
think the
about
least,
this.
you know how I feel though after the course, like the least pain you can give yourself here, because it's none of it matters. I
There's
do not,
no
right.
point
That's
to it.
what she
Yeah.
said. Yeah,
There's
the
no
course
point to
has
suffer.
pointers that are so, but thanks, Myrna. Yeah, I think it's hard to know. It really is.
Yeah.
Anyway, where were we?
Okay. Uh, let's see, we just read about Bill's upset was clearly his own responsibility, which he ultimately recognized. But at this point, he responded like most of humanity, not realizing that the difficult characters in his quote unquote drama were merely reflecting back to him the unloving projections of his own ego and the fears he had thus far refused to own. Bill remembers this in his autobiography.
Wait, he has an autobiography?
Yeah, he does. Yep. So Helen and
I
I were
never knew
working
that.
desperately on a chapter for the comprehensive textbook of psychiatry. We were on a deadline and we had to turn out a lot of material. We had decided to cover one personality theorist a week, which was the only way we could get it all done. I was doing all the reference work and Helen was writing the material. It was a big job and it had to be done well. Ken surfaced on the midst of all this. Helen and I were both edgy, partly because we were trying to get our work done. I also had a lot of other things to do. We were sharp with each other. Ken was appalled at our relationship. Here we had this holy book, this wonderful spiritual material, and we didn't know how to relate to each other. The two of us were bickering and carrying on in a terrible way. We were obviously not being loving and holy. Ken decided he was going to demonstrate how relationships could be healed, to demonstrate perfect love and that sort of thing, how to do it properly. He would take Helen on as the demonstration and show me the power of love or holiness in action. I was apparently to learn from watching. And Myrna Sculler has raised her hand. And while you speak, I'm going to go to that footnote.
no, that
Before
was
you answer
just
her, I just want to say one thing. Where's his I'm a Bill Thetford lover. I love him. They don't have an autobiography of him.
I don't think it was actually published,
Oh,
but I think let me check real quick. Myrna, go ahead.
no, I that was a mistake. I'm sorry. Go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. All right. Um,
okay. Because I'm always intrigued by him. Because as I'm getting deeper into this course, I realized a lot of this, Jesus was talking to him and Helen throughout the whole book, really.
yeah,
Of course, of course.
let's see.
The book is just genius. It really is. It's got Oh, did you know that Bill Donahue died?
Yes, I saw that.
I loved him
Poor
when I was
Marlo.
young.
I know she's sad. Um,
Yeah.
so let's see. Where is that? Where was I at? Okay. All right, I was here, but I'm just real quickly looking for something. Uh, let's see. Anyway, you want to read on from uh Ken observed? I'll put Myrna's hand down. There we go.
Sorry.
That's okay, honey. Uh, yeah, would you want to read from this place where it says Ken observed, Sharon?
Oh, okay. Ken observed. Oh, I love this. Then first, I spent a lot of time with them. They were writing this chapter for a very prestigious publication on personality theories. They would argue and fight. It was awful. We were just getting to know one another. So we spent a lot of time together. When we talked about the course and the path that led me to them, there was no acrimony, none whatsoever. We would finish, they'd go back to the chapter for the textbook and start going at each other. It was almost like Bill and Helen had a pact that they would not screw up the course. They would screw everything else up, but they were faithful to this. Oh boy, Bill continued. Helen was susceptible to all this attention and massive devotion from Ken. It was amazing. She now had the word of Jesus and the whole thing. This was it. Ken thought Helen was sort of the mother of God, the Virgin Mary. Helen thought Ken was one of the world's greatest saints of all time. She would say things like, I can't think of any saint in history who was as beatific as Ken. Beatific. I do love Ken Wapnick. I mean, he's always been somebody that I just, his presence alone, and you got to see him in person. Anyway, so I would have lunch with the Virgin Mary and the world's greatest saint. Of course, I was the world's greatest sinner. I was the terrible guilty party. I'm not sure why I was guilty. That was more obscure. But someone had to be guilty, so I was it. Probably one thing that I was not being loving enough with Helen. I wasn't impressed by the fact that she was the mother of God. This sort of thing went on for a while, and I was both relieved and annoyed by it all. I just love that. Clearly, can you imagine being them? Really?
Yeah, really.
I mean, clearly, Bill felt both replaced by Ken and by his own acknowledgement. Now, see, I can relate to Bill because I sometimes would feel rejected and not realizing that it's my own mind making that up. But that's so common among us humans that we want to be included, that we want to belong. I mean, that's basically every human wants to belong. So
Yeah,
it's a tough one because you can't belong if you're in the ego because the egos are going to always find a problem.
exactly, exactly. So I here I'm going to um let's see. How did I switch the pages
Now,
now?
I want to tell you, Florian and I are going to do this hour. Florian, what did I choose yesterday? Because my memory's not good anymore. What did we talk about? She might have had to walk away. Anyway, we're not doing this. We're going to do a reading, but from the course.
Oh, good.
Okay. Right, because she doesn't have the book, and we both don't know how to put it up the way you do. You're the mother of ACIM Gather.
All right, you guys can all do this now. And I had a hilarious time last night with Jack Roddy. Nobody showed up.
I was going to, I went to a 12-step to go with a girl I sponsor, but I will be there. He is going to have it next week, isn't he?
Yeah, he will. And what I'm saying is, I had a hilarious time with him last night because,
I love him. He's so funny.
and here I'm going to put this link in
I
the.
love his dry humor.
Yeah, he is. Well, we had a great time. You have to go watch that YouTube. But I did it on YouTube, and so I had to teach him how to do the share thing because of I was able to switch it around so that anyone who comes to the meeting can share. So, but I want to, so you'll be able to do this, but I taught him how to do this. All right, here we go. We're at the Foundation for Inner Peace, where we read the course from every day, and it's in the about uh, uh, about ACIM, ACIM scribing. I'll put the link in the chat here, and it is, let's see, where am I?
He was handsome too.
Oh yeah, that was one thing about Bill. He was a really good looking guy too.
Yes.
Here it is. Download Bill's life story in a PDF file.
Oh, I will do that for
Here
sure.
is here is Bill Thetford's biography.
Oh, he was raised as a Christian Scientist.
Yes. Well, no, he wasn't raised as a Christian Scientist. We remember because after his sister died, their parents said, "This doesn't work," and so that's why he wasn't raised as a Christian Science.
Oh, right.
Uh, but
You
yeah,
know,
he
Lynn, I
went.
might have read this. I don't know though, because it's so many years ago. But yeah,
Yeah, well,
I
here it
mean,
is. Look at him when he was 9. What an adorable little boy. I love the way they tinted photos back in those days.
I just loved him. I do.
Yeah,
Something,
there
he's
he is when he
goodness
was
right through him.
14.
Now,
Yeah.
I'm going to say this. If I were meeting both of them, I'd be attracted to Bill, not Helen. Helen would annoy me as an ego,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
as
Oh,
an
look,
ego.
it talks about him working with Carl Rogers. Yeah, this is cool. Yeah, I love it. So anyway, yeah, if you want to go and I'll stop the
Thank you. I
share.
wanted to see that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
so
I really, I don't know. I guess for me, like it was so like, I knew that everything the course was saying was true, but I still wanted to have the background.
yeah, I understand that